The Through the Eyes of Jesus podcast is proud to partner with the Ministry League Network. This network aims to produce, distribute, and promote quality resources, devotionals, and podcasts to benefit individuals and local congregations for God's glory. You can learn more about Ministry League by visiting ministryleague.com or by clicking on their link in the show notes. We hope you enjoy another episode of the Through the Eyes of Jesus podcast as we seek to look at worldly problems from a godly perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Through the Eyes of Jesus podcast. My name is Isaiah Leininger. Joining me today, as always, is my good friend Walker Howell. And today we have a very special guest on, as we do every episode, but this episode is also very special. This episode is a part of our missionary season. We're bringing in missionaries from all over the world to talk about their experience, talk about some of the work that they're doing. And Walker and I thought it would be a good idea to have somewhat of an American missionary come on the show. And we're very thankful for Brother Rob Whitacre coming on the show. Brother Rob works with the School of Evangelism that's tied to house, heart to heart. And Brother Rob, again, we're so thankful to have you on the show. I've gotten to hear your seminar once, and it was great. I've used some of the tools that you've presented there in Bible studies of my own. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk with us this morning.
Isaiah and Walker, thank you for asking me to be on the podcast. And I consider it just a real joy and a blessing to especially appeal to a different generation than sometimes sits in our pews during these seminars. I know you guys are at the Freed-Hardeman campus, and you have a pretty good listening audience of similar demographics. So to reach out to our younger Christians is especially a blessing.
Well, brother, how about we go ahead and get into it then? How about you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with the School of Evangelism there?
Okay, it's a great question. So I never intended to start a school of evangelism. So I never intended to be traveling the country and teaching churches how to evangelize. But to say that evangelism just appeared out of nowhere would be untruthful, because evangelism has been an important part of my life since becoming a Christian. And so when I became a Christian at 15 years of age, one of the promptings of my conversion was evangelism. I had a friend, his name was Brooks Cerna. I can remember sitting down with my dad. I said, "Dad, I've got a friend, he's a Baptist. I'd like to help him become a Christian." And my dad looked at me and he said, "How can you help someone become a Christian when you're not?" Boy, that was it was a really kind of a wake-up call. I remember I was sitting there in the kitchen on a stool, and I looked at my dad and I said, "My legs just won't move forward. I can't go forward. I'm just scared to go before an audience." And he said, "Let's go talk to Daryl Conley, our preacher at Northern Oaks Church of Christ, San Antonio." So Brother Conley said, "Rob, just sit in the front pew." He said, "When I'm done with the sermon," he said, "I'll come and take your confession." And that's what happened. And it was that evangelistic desire for me to teach my friend that brought me to a point to become a Christian myself. So after I became a Christian, then I really started looking for a method, an approach, a strategy to reach those who are my age. I knew nothing about evangelism. I go to gospel meetings, lectureships. I attend every service, Bible class. My dad was a deacon, my grandfather an elder and a preacher. So I'm raised in a Christian home, but I know nothing about, winning souls to Christ. There was a teacher, his name was Wade Brown. He taught our first lesson on evangelism, and he drew a picture on the whiteboard, and it was a circle. It was Christ, and he explained, here are the things that are in Christ, and here's how you can teach your friends. It was an illustration from Romans chapter 6. Verses 3-5 about the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. And it really hit my heart. I said, well, man, that's simple. I mean, it's so easy. I can teach my friends. So I tried to teach them. I started teaching them. Through a period of 4 or 5 years, we baptized over 15 into Christ, baptized one of their mothers into Christ. She's still faithful today. But probably the conversion that put me over the top was the conversion of my best friend, who was Catholic. And so he would come over to the house, and I'd say, "Hey," his name's Mel Hutzler. I'd say, "Hey, Mel, let's read the Bible." So I purposely read passages of the Bible that I knew would be most beneficial to him. So we'd read passages like in Matthew 22, where Jesus said, call no man your father, but your father in heaven. And I'd ask questions. So I'd never make accusations. I just ask questions. I say, okay, Mel, why do you call your priest father? His answer was, I don't know, but I'll find out. So that happened over a period of years, literally years. So I'm a freshman in high school, and that goes on sophomore year, junior year, into the senior year. And I keep reading passages. One of the other passages was Acts 8, the Ethiopian eunuch, they went down, both Philip and the eunuch, into the water. He baptized him. I'd say, Mel, why do you sprinkle when they went down into the water? I don't know, Rob. I'll find out. He never could. He never could find out because it's not in the Bible. And he was looking in the Bible. So Mel is a devout Catholic. He's an altar boy. He's gone to catechism or various classes. He goes to church. His dad is very committed. Like almost every day they go to some type of mass. He does confessional. So, but Mel starts to go to church with me, and his father has no problem with it. So he's going to church with me, and he's learning. And we're doing more study. Now we're seniors in high school, and our studying is getting intense. There's a passage in Proverbs that says, iron sharpeneth iron. And so we were sharp. I guess you realize, when you're close friends, you can be sharp with your friend and still maintain your friendship. So we were pretty sharp. So we go back and forth, and he started to realize he had no answers at all. One day we're sitting in my room. He looks at me and says, Rob, he says, I need help. And I said, what is it, Mel? He says, I want to become a Christian. Man, it's great. It's one of the greatest days of my life was that day. And I said, Mel, what do you need me to do? He says, I need you to explain this to my dad. And I was like, man, I don't know. I'd be glad to explain it to your dad. I really didn't know how to do it, but I'd be glad to help him. Well, his dad is a different kind of person. He's he has a temper. He uses 4-letter words in casual conversation. He's a scary man. He's an angry man. So I normally don't talk to him. But in this day, I went over to the house. We sat around the table, and he tells his dad, hey, Rob wants to talk to you. And I said, Mr. Hutzler, could I ask you some questions about Catholicism? He said, well, sure. So I asked him the same questions I asked Mel, very respectfully. I'm 17, 18 years old. So I just asked, why do you sprinkle, babies? And can I read you Acts 8? And I did. Man, he just exploded. I mean, he became visibly upset, and he hits his fist on the table. He starts screaming, yelling, using 4-letter words with the Bible in front of him. And I'm shivering because I've never been. He's an adult male. He's a pretty big guy. And Mel's trying to calm his dad down. I said, Dad, we just have questions about the Bible. Can you help us? And he's yelling at me like I owe you no explanation, get out of my house. He throws his wallet at me. He becomes irate. So I leave. I went home, and I'm devastated because as I left, he said, you'll never see my son again, and you'll never be at this house again. And he was really upset. So I'm upset because I think my best friend, he's my closest friend. I've lost him. But that night at 9:00, the doorbell rings. I open the door. On the other side of the door is Mel Hutzler with 2 suitcases in his hand. And he looks at my dad and says, Mr. Hutzler, my father said if I wanted to stay at home, I have to be a Catholic. But if I want to become a Christian, I'd have to leave. He says, Mr. Whitacre, I have no place to live, and I want to be a Christian. It was incredible. My mother took him and hugged him and said, son, you'll always have a place to live here. So he moves into my house, right? But we still have this problem with his dad. So we drive by his house, and his dad's irate. And Mel has not become a Christian because Mel's trying to, he's trying to work through this family dynamic, which is really tough. You guys both, did you guys both grow up in Christian homes? Walker, Isaiah? Okay, so I did too. So this is a dynamic that I don't understand. So my dad says, Mel, is there any way you can go meet with your dad and make peace? So Mel does. So his dad comes to an agreement. The agreement is, hey, if you go study with a Monsignor, whatever decision you make, I'll respect it and you can come home. I said, well, this is great. I said, well, Mel, what is a Monsignor? I don't know. He said, oh, Rob, it's one level up from a Catholic priest. My response was this. I said, well, Mel, we're going to convert the whole Catholic Church. This is wonderful. And so I'm 18 years old. I just thought we're just going to convert everybody, because if you read the Bible, somebody, they'll do what it says. The day of the study, so we study every day, but the day of the study, I get the stomach virus and I can't go. And I say, Mel, reschedule. And then he hits me with the news. He says, hey, Rob, my dad said you can't come. I said, no, I've got to come. You can't go up against a Monsignor by yourself. He brought out his Bible and he said, I won't. I have everything I need. And that young man went to that Catholic cathedral. That Monsignor drove all the way from San Antonio, Texas, 30-minute drive up to Bulverde. And Mel went into the office and he just opened his Bible and he read it. He read Acts 8, 35 through 39, very simple passage. And they went down both into the water, both Philip and the eunuch, and he baptized them and they came up out of the water. And so it's not a hard passage. And he reads it and he says, why do we sprinkle? And the Catholic Monsignor's answer was, stop reading that book. Mel said, that's the Bible. He said, yes, but it's my job to read the Bible, not yours. And then Mel read it again. And he said, I told you to stop reading that book. He said, it's my job to interpret those passages. And we don't just go by the Bible. We go by the Bible and tradition. And I'm here to teach you our traditions. Well, Mel took his Bible. He closed it. He looked at the Monsignor and he said, as far as I'm concerned, this Bible study is over. And he left. And the next Sunday at the Northern Oaks Church of Christ, my closest friend stood up and walked forward. And he chose his heavenly father over his earthly father, and he was baptized. And there wasn't a dry eye in that whole church. And I will never forget that day in my life. That day, I decided I was going to become a gospel preacher because I wanted to evangelize. I said, I want to spend the rest of my life bringing souls to Christ. It wasn't necessarily the love of preaching because I'd never preached. It was the love of souls and evangelism. I said, I'm going to do it. Mel looked at me and he said, well, I want to do it too. And I said, well, Mel, I said, I tell you what, I'll put off my education because I was going to go to a school of preaching for 1 year. And I said, if you want to go with me, you can go. And we went to school together. So both Mel and I went to the school of preaching together and we graduated. Mel today's preaching at the Northern Oaks Church of Christ where he was baptized. He's actually their preacher and was just installed as an elder there. So it's an incredible journey. So it's that kind of background that brings me to today. So I needed to explain what is it? Why am I here? I like to preach. I love to preach, but I love evangelism more. I love doing Bible studies. So every work, I had 3 full-time works. I focused on doing Bible studies with people. I started in Poole, Kentucky. We took a little church in the farm fields from 50 to 70. And that was tough because that's a little bitty town. And we did it with cold turkey evangelism. I mean, I went to the barber shop, baptized the barber. I went to the post office and I went to I went all over the town meeting people and people in various, civic groups. And I'd study with them. I was told, in fact, on one occasion, an elder said, there's no way you'll ever convert this man. His name was Randall. And he said, I bet you a Coke you can't convert him. I looked at that elder and I said, you're on. And we did the Bible studies. He was baptized. And about 4:00 in the morning, one morning, I got a doorbell. My doorbell went off and I was like, who in the world at 4 a.m? A farmer with a Coke in his hand. And I said, take your Coke, Malin. And in any case, it was that. And so I went to my next congregation. We did the same thing. Went to church of 110. We were 160 in just a few years. And we did it with evangelism. We did it by doing Bible studies. And I was learning how to do it. I was learning how to reach people. There's different ways to do it. And so it's not all just one thing. But I was growing. So then I went to my third work at Willette. Once again, 230, 240, 250, 260, 300. And we're baptizing people left and right. And it's doing Bible studies. So those 3 works really taught me a lot about evangelism. So I didn't learn evangelism by reading a book. I think you need to read. I learned the evangelism really by taking the Bible and looking at what Jesus did and trying to emulate that. So I learned evangelism from trying to be more like Jesus. I can remember sitting in my office and looking at the Bible studies of Christ and writing down the things that made Jesus successful. And the things, and I even made a list before I did that of things that I thought made me successful. And they didn't match. Like the things that made Jesus really good and what I thought made me good, they weren't aligning together. So I came up with 7 principles that made Jesus like an expert evangelist, made him very good. I started getting invites to teach other people how to do what I was doing. I guess the biggest invite came from Polishing the Pulpit. You guys familiar with Polishing the Pulpit? Biggest venue in the Brotherhood. You're talking about 5,000 people. It's incredible. So for learning, and so they asked me to come and teach. So I did. I did 1 lesson on evangelism. It was packed. The room was packed. They said, come back and do it again. So I did a second lesson. I did it for 5 years. I had 5 lessons on evangelism. Then Alan Webster looked at me and said, now I want you to come do all of them together in a series. And I'm going to put you in the big ballroom. It's going to seat like 400 people. When I walked in, it was 400 people and people standing all around the side. And I was like, I've never preached to an audience like this in my life. And I didn't know that there was this much interest in it. So it was the biggest buzz of that year. People just loved those lessons. And I had a line of people asking me, can you come teach us? Can you come teach us? And I'm a local preacher. So this is creating a problem for me because I can't do all of this. My family can't. So I went to World Video Bible School, probably the premier work we have in the Brotherhood for video work. They do incredible work. And they said, so I filmed all the lessons and they sent them to every Church of Christ in America. And then, of course, it just even now everyone's calling me, saying, can you come? Can you come? So it was difficult. It was really difficult. I was trying to maintain a full-time work at the Willette Church of Christ in Red Bowling Springs, Tennessee. And I was trying to help these churches. So I'd fly out Thursday morning, fly back late Saturday night. My wife and I were doing it together. She had lessons for the ladies. I did the lessons for the men. And so it kind of came to a head. And Alan Webster eventually offered me to start a school of evangelism. He said, Rob, would you start a school? And Don Blackwell was the first who made the offer, and Alan was the second. And I thought to myself, hey, I can't keep shutting these doors. There's a reason they're opening. So we decided to start a school and place it under the house-to-house, heart-to-heart work, which is overseen by the East Ridge Church of Christ in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And house-to-house has been around for a long time. It's probably it's the premium work for publication, printing, magazines. They've done a lot of good. But he said, I'll provide you graphic artists, editors, website designers, publishers, printers. You just do your thing, Rob, and let's see what happens. So let me tell you what's happened in the last 5 years. So I started this in July of 2018. So my family routinely goes to 40 to 50 churches. We've done 52 churches in a year. So we go on the road and we go from church to church and we train the church. And we go on long trips, sometimes short trips. And in that period of time, we've had 2,700 baptisms in this country. I'm not talking about India. And these are churches and now are enrolling in a school. Now, when we first started, all I had, fellas, was 5 lessons. Now we have a full curriculum. It's incredible, the tools we've developed in the last 5 years. So we're seeing churches grow who thought they could not grow. We're seeing churches as small as 20, 25 members double their size in a matter of a few years. We're seeing churches that are large where it's working. So I appreciate you introducing me with the phrase American missionaries, because that's what we consider ourselves. So I've been to foreign countries for years. I don't go to foreign countries at this point. I think if we don't evangelize America, there won't be any foreign mission works. I had a missionary contact me from New Zealand. His name's Kent O'Donnell. And Kent said, hey, Rob, he said, my family prays for you each evening because if you don't succeed in what you're trying to do, there will be no churches left to support us. So our churches in America, let's talk about our churches in America. So our church is hurting. Did you guys know this? Here's a demographic that you may be interested in. So the ages of church membership, if you look at the average Church of Christ, for those under the age of 30, what would you guys say the percentage be in the kingdom? I'll just let you answer. So under the age of 30, what would the percentage be that represent the churches of Christ? What do you think that percentage would look like?
I'd say probably about 40% would be my guess. What do you think, Walker?
Okay.
I say 15.
Okay. So it's actually 13%.
Oh, wow.
So 13% of our church members are under the age of 30. So let's go to the other side. Let's go 50 and older. 50 years and older. What would be the average age of our church demographic? What would be the percentage it represents? 50 and older. What do you think it'd be?
After hearing that last statistic, it's probably up in the 70s or 80s.
Yeah. It's 2/3. 2/3 of our church membership is going to be over the age of 50. So when you put all that together, you have a serious problem, guys. You have a really serious problem. We have a church that's aging out. The church is going to lose the baby boom generation, which compose 2/3 of our church membership in the next 25 years. We're going to lose them. Who's going to replace them? So if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're not going to make it, right? Because what we've been doing is not working. So we're losing and shedding church members incredibly fast. So I think it was between the years 2015 and 2018, we lost 111 churches of Christ annually, 18,541 church members each year. So what happens if we continue doing that? It's catastrophic. We cannot, if we don't do something now, okay, you're going to have home churches, not buildings. Okay, you're going to go back to the COVID type worship service. We won't have enough. There's not going to be enough of us. So I made the decision, my wife and I, my family, because our work is a family work. My son, Jared, my daughter, Hannah, we do this together. We decided we're going to travel this country and train churches how to grow because we know we can. We know that it works. So we know that if you will do what we teach in our school, okay, you'll grow. We know that. We've proven it. It's not if the model works, it's if you'll work it. All right. Yeah. So we have over 200 congregations enrolled in our school. It's the house-to-house, heart-to-heart school of evangelism. And we provide a full range of training. We go physically, we walk in, and we train that church how to reach out. And we don't just go and leave. We now have a full curriculum that we provide that they can now execute step by step. It's a modular website, and they go through it. The results are amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. So I know, let me give you an example of a church in your area. So you guys live in the Henderson area. Okay, so most of your listeners are going to know of Middleton, Tennessee, right? So Middleton, Tennessee, just outside of Middleton, there's a little church called the New Hope Church of Christ. The preacher is Cole Wade. They have 2 elders. So when I went there, they had about 40 members or so. And the elders said, hey, we want to learn how to evangelize. Now, if you go visit New Hope, you might want to bring a chainsaw in the back of your truck because to get to that church building, it's very possible there's a tree down and you're going to have to cut it up and get it out of the way. I mean, this is remote, right? This is a very remote church. Okay, so we 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, went to train that church. The preacher, he got it. He said, man, I can do this. The elders were excited. The membership, they were ready to work. So that whole church worked extremely hard. I mean, extremely hard. They had 120 in their attendance last week. They baptized last year 11. They have had people just pouring into that church. Cole told me recently his biggest problem is there's more. The visitors outnumber them. The visitors outnumber them. They said, Rob, we're working to get into our community, and our problem is they're averaging now in the 90s this year. So this is a congregation that most would have looked at and said, "There's no way they're going to make it." Right? They're in a terrible location. They're in a little bitty building. I don't know how you get 120 in a building like that. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but that's a church that followed the model and the process and explosive. Now, I don't think you're going to get that in every church, not that quick. We have what we call the 7-year plan. What we want to do is see you baptize 10% of your community according to membership size for 7 years. So if you're a church of 100, that's 10 baptisms each year for 7 years. You guys familiar with the rule of 7? So if you do 10% every year for 7 years, you double. All right. So that's a reasonable goal. So if you're 50, that's 5 baptisms. That's nothing unreasonable. That's a baptism every other month. I mean, that's if you can't get a baptism every other month, there's a serious problem somewhere. All right. But I'm visiting churches, I'm with elders, and they haven't had a baptism in over a year. Like nothing. But don't worry. We have graduation parties, and we have trunk or treat, and we have, senior moments and gifts and, all sorts of, celebrations going on, but there's no souls being saved. So our school is designed to train members how, give you a strategy, a plan to do it. And we have a great model in order to accomplish that. So that's a little bit of history, that you can chew on, why I'm here. So I stepped out of full-time work in 2018, and I decided I would spend the rest of my life training churches how to evangelize. And my family is doing it, and our school's growing. We just established 8 regional instructors all over the country, and we're poised, I think, to help be a part of the answer. We're not all the answer. We need more help, but I think we're on the right track, and the trajectory is good. We're seeing an increase. So like last year, we had 980 baptisms in our school, and that's in 1 year. So this year, we're 35% ahead of that number. We're tracking. We are big into metrics. So we track, we want to see results. I think your generation wants results. I think they want to say, hey, is it worth my time? Show me. Don't just talk about it. I'm tired of hearing sermons on evangelism, and I see no results at all. Like the preacher's not doing it. The elders aren't doing it. No one's doing it. But don't worry. We're going to preach you a sermon on evangelism. Go ye therefore and teach the gospel. You got to do it. Nobody tells you how. They don't equip you. They don't train you. No one leads it. There's no strategy. And we're shooting from the hip, and we wonder why we're not growing. We're not growing because we're not doing it. All right. There's a difference between talking about evangelism and doing evangelism. And then those who want to do it, if you're like me, when I was, 16, 17 years old, I didn't know how. I had a great preacher. I mean, Daryl Conley was an incredible preacher, but no one's training us how to do it. So, going up and knocking on the door and saying, I'm a member of the Church of Christ. Would you like to come to our gospel meeting? Is not exactly a strategy for success. Okay. That is almost guaranteed failure. All right. But that's what we do. All right. It doesn't work. Hey, looking at someone and say, hey, would you like to have a Bible study? It's not a good strategy. You may get one occasionally, but most people are going to say, no, I do not want to do a Bible study with you. So we don't even know how to talk to people. We don't. And when we do, we don't know what to do, what to use. So there's a big difference in having a conversation or talk about Jesus and having a Bible study. It's massive. Like you can talk to someone about Jesus for years and get nowhere, right? I mean, you just keep talking about it, and you might even have some interesting conversations, quote unquote. Well, that was an interesting discussion. You're no closer to Golgotha when you're done than when you started. In fact, you may be further away. So we're not teaching our members how to do it. So going to the coffee shop and sitting down and, having your latte or your mocha and your donut or whatever pastry you want to eat, right? And having a conversation or a devotional, that's not evangelism. All right. I'm not discouraging people from being social. We need more of social, but there's no plan in place. Like, how do you get someone to sit down and open the Bible and not just read the book of Acts? I'm all for reading the Bible, but have a strategic study to bring someone to Christ. That's a whole different approach. Jesus, you notice Jesus never just sat down and said, well, let's read Genesis 1 and we'll just start reading there and we'll see where you go. No, he strategically used the passages to help them learn the truth, right? He didn't start at Genesis 1, just read through Genesis. So we don't just start in Matthew and read through Matthew. I've heard people say things like this. I'm like, that's not a good strategy. There's nothing sinful about it. It's not the best way to reach people. So you got to have an approach and a strategy, and you got to be trained how to do it. And it's not hard. A fifth grader can do what I teach. What I teach is really simple. And in fact, I know of I know of middle schoolers who've converted their grandparents, right, using the approach that I give them. I was at a preaching school, a Brown Carroll School of Preaching. It's in Fort Worth, Texas. One of the students came up and said, "Hey, Rob," he said, "no one's ever taught me how to do a Bible study." He said, "I'm going to take this, what I've learned, and I'm going to go study with my mom." A week later, he baptized her. A week later, he baptizes his mom. And Brian Howard worked at World Video Bible School. And he learned. He went to one of our seminars and learned what we did. He said, "Rob, all I do is argue with my dad." He said, "I'm going to try what you just taught us." So he goes home. A couple of weeks later, he sends me a photo of him and his dad, and sitting at a restaurant, and he's wet. He just baptized him. He said, "Rob, I just baptized my dad." He said, "All I did was argue before this. So it's just, we haven't taught our members how to do it. And a lot of people don't know. We have preachers who don't know how to do it. And that's why we started this school. So we have 7 principles in our school, guys, 7. And I teach them in my training seminars. I teach these 7 principles because they're very, very important. All right. So then we when we finish our training, we go to what we call the executable model, which is a strategy for the church to implement what they've learned. And we have a model that's based on 6 steps. So they learn 7 underlying principles, but there's 6 steps to carry them out. And that's basically the foundation of our school. We call them the 6 steps to success. And so we start with contacts, and we teach a church how to make contacts. We spend a lot of time on that. I think we have 20 different contact creators in our school. So a contact creator is a process that a church uses to create a contact. A contact is a person, right? So you guys ever go to Walmart or Target or something, and you see all the people on the store. What happens if the store is empty? Like, what happened if you walked in, there's no one there? What would you think? That store's in trouble, right? Yeah, they're in trouble. They're not going to make it, right? Because if Walmart doesn't have customers, they go bankrupt. So if the church doesn't have contacts, what happens to the church? It dies. It dies, right? We have to have them. It's the number one, it's the first step in the model. You got to create contacts. So does Walmart know how to create customers, by the way?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're very good. How do they do it? You guys tell me. How does Kohl's, how does Target, how does Walmart, how does Radio Shack, or how does Starbucks, how do these places create customers? What do they do? Y'all tell me.
Market.
Okay, how do they market them? What do they do?
TV ads, commercials.
Commercials, right? So they promote their work, right? They promote their business. They ads, commercials, newspapers, magazines, social media. I mean, they blast it out there, right? They do. Do we? So is the Church of Christ promoting and advertising itself in their community? So let's use some terminology. Some of you guys in the business, I don't know, the business area of education, you'll recognize these. Okay, here it is. So it's brand awareness, brand recognition, and then there's brand saturation. Now, I don't think we'll ever achieve that. Let me give you an example of that. That's Coca-Cola. Give me a Coke. So that's brand saturation. They own the market. When you say I want a Coke, you're advertising their particular product. It's not biblical for us to ever achieve that, right? We're never going to get that. Jesus told us that. Narrow is the way that leads to life. We're not going to get brand saturation. But can we at least get brand awareness? Can we at least get to a point where people know we're there? And so do you know you can literally have a church building and people can drive past it every day and they don't even know you're there, right? So how do we get brand awareness? How do we get customers to know who we are? That's what we teach in our school. And we got 20 different ways to do it, 20 different ways to do that. And I'll guarantee if you do them, you'll get them. Now, if you have a church of 100, how many customers, how many contacts do we want you to produce in 1 year? You guys, how many customers? Let me ask you guys a question, because I think this is a great learning opportunity for your audience. So how many customers Do you think a church needs contacts in order to stay in business for a year's time? In other words, to have enough conversions so that you're achieving some success. How many customers, contacts do you think you need to start with if you're a church of 100? How many, guys?
I would say 100. If you're
100 contacts.
Then
All right, 100 contacts. You need 100 contacts. You are 20 times off.
oh wow,
It's 2,000. It's 2,000. So it's okay. No, so this is a great. I love this podcast because what we're showing is that, again, this is information that we desperately need, but we don't have it. So when Churches of Christ call our school, and I get these calls a lot, and they say, "Hey, preacher, we're struggling to grow." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. What can I do to help you?" So they'll explain their current status, and then I get to ask my favorite question: how many contacts do you have? The answer is 1, 2, 3, none. That's the answers I get. Okay. So if you are there at your local church, if that's where you're at, you are destined for bankruptcy. You will not succeed. If you're a church of 100 members on an annual basis, you should have 2,000 contacts. 2,000 contacts. Now, a contact is someone you have a name and address. There's someone it's not just someone you look at. Oh, that's not a contact. If a visitor walks in and sits in your pew, fellas, is that a contact? No, it's not a contact. It's a wasted opportunity if you don't get a name and address. All right. Let me ask you guys another question. How many churches of Christ do you think annually have people walk in, sit in their pews, get up and leave, and we get no contact information? You think that's the norm? It is the norm. It's absolutely the norm. So we have people. Oh, nice. How you doing? Good to see you. If that's how you handled your business, right? If a customer walked in and great to see you, that's all you did, they'd fire you, right? We need them to become a customer. Okay, we need that person to become a contact. There has to be a strategy to do that. We don't have one. We put a couple people at the door, a couple guys with earpieces, right? Because they're monitoring who comes in and, making sure that we're not going to have a terrorist hit in the church, right? And they have bulges in their side pocket, because we're worried that someone's going to come in that's unauthorized. And we're making sure all the doors are locked. That's not a recipe for creating contacts, right? So we have to do a better job. So you got to create contacts. Now, here's a guarantee. You enroll in our school, I guarantee if you're 100 members, I'll get you 2,000 contacts. And I can do it within minutes. I mean, I can stamp my fingers and get you there. A lot of what we teach is common sense, and they're not doing it. They're just going through the motions, checking boxes. We're not thinking about these things. So we need to establish brand awareness in your community, and we got to help you get there. We're going to teach you how to make contacts. All right, let's go to step 2. Step 2 is prospects. All right. So a prospect is an active contact. It's a contact that you're trying to filter. You're trying to get to know them. You're trying to find out if they're part of the many or the few. You guys understand those two terms?
Right.
Matthew 7, right? So
right.
Narrow is the way that leads to life, few there be that find it. Broad is the way that leads to destruction. Many there be. So there's two categories of people out here, right? There's the narrow, there's the few and the many. So when I make 2,000 contacts, what's my job? My job is to figure out, all right, the 2,000 contacts, where do they fit? Majority of them are in the many, but not all of them. Some of them are in the few. So how do I find out? I prospect. What is prospecting? Prospecting is using Christian kindness, love, compassion, and joy. And it's using the tools God gave you and applying them to the contacts and seeing what kind of response you get. So when we have someone maybe who's a contact who is sick and they need cancer treatments or surgery, we're going to take the church and we're going to apply a new model. It's called congregational evangelism. It's not personal. We're going to use the entire church of Christ to love them. We're going to pour the love on them like they've never experienced it before. Not the secretary. We're not paying someone to send a form letter. Not the preacher. Okay. We're talking every church member. So we're going to create an atmosphere where that person who has cancer is going to feel the love of all 100 members. You say, well, that's impossible. It's not. It's not impossible. You guys have the advantage of growing up in a social media culture. It's not hard for us to reach out to people. All right. So we're going to use every tool at our disposal to prospect them. Prospectors are normally associated with what trade? A prospector. When you think of prospectors, what do you visualize in your mind? Because I got a picture of a prospector in my mind. What do you visualize, gentlemen?
A gold miner.
There you go. Guy with a beard, right? He's got a shovel in one hand, a bucket in the other. So he's going to go down. You got it. He's going to go down there and shovel in some dirt. No, not just any dirt, pay dirt. How much pay dirt does he want? Lots of it, right? Lots of it, because if he doesn't have a lot of pay dirt, he's not going to get a lot of results. So he takes the pay dirt, and where does he take it, Walker? Where does he take the pay dirt? He takes it, puts it in a what? You remember what he does with it? Does he just stare at the dirt and hope somehow it's going to produce something? What does he do with it, Isaiah?
He shifts it out, looks for the valuables inside.
That's right. That's right. He puts it in a pan, puts it in a sluice box. What's he doing to the pay dirt? He's prospecting it. He's dividing it out, right? He's trying to figure out what produces and what doesn't produce. Only a few of it produces. The many it's tossed aside because it doesn't produce. But the few produce. So he's going to find, how does he do that? He prospects it. You got 2,000 contacts. Do you think they're just going to jump in the water?
No.
You got to prospect the 2,000 contacts. You got to find out where the many and the few are. And these are not difficult concepts. They're common sense. So we have tools and processes in place for you to do that. And one of them is card sending, massive card sending, like on a scale you'd never seen before. We're talking about a church of 100 sending 100 cards to someone who's going to have cancer treatments. And they're going to get not 100 cards in one day. That's not very sensible. No, you divide them up. You send 3 or 4 cards a day for 3 or 4 weeks. You think that's going to make a difference when someone gets 3 or 4 cards a day, praying for them, wishing them well? Maybe someone who's gone through the experience, writing a very touching note. Do you think you're going to get their attention? Oh, absolutely you are. So we have these tools. They're called compassion cards, and we encourage, and it works extremely well. So we're going to prospect. So let's go to step 3. Step 3 is that we're going to shoot for the Bible study. All right. So going from contact to Bible study is too far. You'll lose them. But going from prospect to Bible study, it's not very difficult. Guys, I met a guy this afternoon. His name's John Butler. He came to my house, and I've known him for years. So the last time John Butler came to my house, he was delivering some materials for our school. He's in the printing industry. He's out of Birmingham. I said, "Hey, John, would you like to stay for lunch?" He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, my wife, we got dinner in the house. You'd let me invite me into your home?" I said, "Sure." "Oh, yeah, man, I'd love to stay for lunch. That's great." It was about noon. So he walks into the house, my children, Jared and Hannah, my wife, Nicole. We sit around the table. What are we doing? What are we doing? Prospecting. I'm prospecting him. See, everything I do in my life is about winning souls. I'm not there just to talk about, the football game. I'm not there to talk about the basketball game. I'll talk about it. I'm there to win a soul. Now, he's a contact, all right? Now I'm prospecting him. So he came back today, guys, and I did the same thing. "Hey, John, there's a great place, food truck. It has the best Cajun catfish you've ever put your mouth on. How would you like to eat with us again? I'll go grab some. We'll just sit." "Yeah." He said, "Man, I had so much fun." He said, "No one's ever invited me to their house before to do this." So we sat around the table and we're eating. He's telling me about his whole life. I'm getting like the entire story. Before he left, I said, "Hey, John, you print these little tools called Back to the Bible." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Man, Rob, you go through a lot of those." I said, "I do." I said, "Have you ever wondered what's inside of them?" "Yeah, kind of." I said, John, I said, my family wants to ask you a question. Would you like to know more about the church where we attend? I kind of would. I said, well, I got these little booklets here, John. Would you like to go through them with me? I like to do that, Rob. I said, great. When would you like to do it? He said, what about next Friday? I said, I'll come back and we'll go through. I said, sounds great, John. So in the meantime, the Glencoe Church of Christ, where I attend, has been sending John cards because his mother has Alzheimer's, dementia, and John's been taking care of her. So John's been getting all these cards from the church. And John has known me for years, and we've always had a good relationship. But now I've been eating with him. That's prospecting, cards, prospecting. It was a real simple transition. So I transitioned John right to the Bible. And now next Friday, I'll have my first Bible study with John. I have almost 100% success rate getting studies, almost 100. In other words, when I want to get a study with you, I'm pretty much certain I'm going to get it. But it may take me a little while, but I'll get it. I'm not there to talk about Jesus. I'm there to study with you about Jesus. There's a difference. So once I do that, I know what's going to happen. There's a 90% chance John's going to obey the gospel. It happens 9 out of 10 times we do studies. So that's how I get studies. I prospect contacts, and that gives me studies. And when you love a person, it's not as hard to get the study. But if they don't know who you are from Adam, they don't want to study with you, right? So it's a transition. So step number 4 is baptisms. If you want baptisms, what must you do? So if I ask you, I say, how many baptisms have you had? Well, we're not having any baptisms, Rob. If you're not having baptisms, I can guarantee you're not doing what? Bible studies. Now, did I just make that up? No, it's called the Great Commission. Go ye therefore and teach, right? Make disciples. Mm-hmm. To do what? Baptize, right? Yeah. So if you want to make if you want someone to become a Christian, to baptize them, what must you do? Teach them, right? Yeah. So if you're not teaching people, are you going to have baptisms? No. So let me ask a question. At your local church, and I don't know who's listening, how many Bible studies are going on right now? If you're like the typical Church of Christ, it's 0. How many baptisms you're having? 0. Oh, we've got 3 Bible studies going on. You're probably going to have 3 baptisms. In our school last week, we had 37 baptisms in 1 week, 7 days. Those are a result of Bible studies. Those are a result of people studying the Bible. All right. So that's how you get to baptisms. So we talk about that and we teach that. That's step number 4 in our model. Step number 5 is new converts. So that's a very important step. You got to have a plan to keep the saved. We have a motto in our school. If you walk in the front door, we're going to lock the back door. We're not going to let you out. So once you become a Christian, we're going to all hands on deck. We're going to have mentors established. We're going to do new convert classes. It's exciting. It's the best class in the whole church. So a lot of new converts leave the church. Why? Because we drop them off at the front door and that's it. All right. Yeah. So if you don't have a plan to keep the saved, you'll lose them right out the back door and you're not growing. And we have a very high percentage in our school success rate of keeping the saved. It's very exciting. Last step is growing church. So you got to have a church. You got to have a church growth model. But a growing church is a result of what? It's not more seminars. It's not more lectureships. It's not more books. It's not having another program. We don't need another ministerial work. We don't need to have. We'll get a. We're going to have a family life minister. We're going to have a youth minister, college. No, that's not the answer. The answer is evangelism. New converts produce growing churches. You want your church to grow? New converts. That's the model. It's not stealing the sheep from the other churches because there's 50 churches in your county and they just hop from one church to another. Roster growth is not kingdom growth, gentlemen. If you want kingdom growth, you got to evangelize. And so new converts give you growth. Guess what every new convert gives you, by the way?
Bunch of new
50
contacts.
more contacts because they know people you don't know. They got moms, dads, brothers, sisters, neighbors, friends, coworkers, right? So immediately you have access to more new What do contacts give you? Prospects. What do prospects give you? Bible studies. What do Bible studies give you? Baptism. What do baptisms give you? New converts. What do new converts give you? A growing church. You know what we call that? That's called the life cycle of the Church of Christ, and most of our members don't know it. Our young people don't know it. They've never been taught it. No one is teaching any of this stuff. we're doing the same thing we've been doing for 20 years, and our churches are dying on the vine. We have got to teach evangelism, and we got to make it practical for everybody so everybody can do it. That's what we do at our school. It's exciting. So let me go back to one more thing. So I said 2,000, right? Y'all remember 2,000? So let me give you the numbers. Of the 2,000, how many of those 2,000 will turn into prospects? 200. You're going to lose 90% of them in the contact step. So 90% of them, you're going to lose them, right? Of the prospects, how many of those 200 are going to turn into Bible studies?
100.
20. Of the 200, you'll have 20. You're going to lose 90% again. So our loss rate's pretty high, but it's biblical, right? It's biblical. And I'm going to prove that in just a minute. Okay, I'm going to end with something that I hope will really, really strike a chord with all your listeners. So you're going to have 20 Bible studies. What will 20 Bible studies give you by the end of the year? Statistically, 18 baptisms. Did you notice your efficiency rate dramatically increased? You went from 90% lost. You math majors out there, you just had a 90% gain. So when you get to the Bible study stage, man, it's incredible the results you get when you get there. Do you know why I needed 2,000 contacts? Because to get 18 baptisms, I need 2,000 contacts. If you don't start right, you don't finish right. Now let's make this applicable. Let's demonstrate this in Scripture. Matthew chapter 22. It's the parable of the wedding feast. When Jesus says, go out to the highways and byways, compel them to come in, get the lame, the halt, the blind. But he ends it with the application in verse 14, gentlemen. Do you remember what Jesus said in verse number 14? And it's simple. You guys know the passage. If I start it, you'll finish it. Jesus said, many are called, and few are chosen. Why do you need to start with the many? Because that's the only way we get to few. What happens if we start with a few? Let's rewrite the passage to describe what we're doing now. Okay, few are called and none are chosen. Yeah. So if you call a few, what do you get at the end of the day? Nothing. That's not what it says. So what are our churches doing? Oh, I got 2 contacts out there. Odds are you got nothing, right? Because at the end of the day, the 2 is not enough. Walmart will go bankrupt with 2 customers, and you will have a dying church with 2 contacts. We've got to start with many. We need many contacts. Now, in your area, there's a lot of churches of Christ. The attitude could easily be this. Well, everybody around here is a Christian. No, they're not. Don't fool yourself. You're making excuse. They're not all Christians. There's a lot of contacts out there. In fact, they're at Freed Hardman. They're walking your campus. And you ought to have evangelists everywhere trying to reach them. And you're not going to just help them become Christians because you smile at them every day or sit next to them. All right. So there are non-Christians all over the county, all over Henderson. And our job is to make contacts, prospect the contacts, study the Bible with them, have a Bible study, a methodical study. We use Back to the Bible. It's a great tool. So easy to use, 90% success rate. And then from that Bible study, you'll have baptisms. Many are called, few are chosen. It's not hard. It's an easy, simple verse that I did not understand for most of my ministry. Like I did not think about what that really meant. So many means many. Many means many. So for a church of, 25, many could be 300, right? For a church of 100, many is 1,000, 2,000. But you got churches there that have 300, 400, 500. What's many look like? I doubt they're reaching to the many. And so these are concepts that we teach in our school. And we are thankful for the opportunity to do it. I thank God. I never thought I'd be doing this. This was never on my wish list. I didn't even know there were the possibilities of schools of evangelism. But there are schools of preaching. So why can't there be schools of evangelism? And now we've got one, and you can enroll individually. So let me give you guys some contact information. Is that okay? All right.
Perfect.
Great. So go to evangelism.housetohouse.com, and that's our website, evangelism.housetohouse.com, T-O. So you'll find information there about our school. You can email me, rob@housetohouse.com, rob@housetohouse.com. So reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you. You can enroll in our school. It's free enrollment. And so we'll provide you a curriculum, a study path. And we actually have graduates of our school, and we have an advanced course that people take. You can enroll in an entire church and congregation. So if the congregation enrolls, we provide the training for the whole church. And we don't do a Monday night for the masters. That's not what we do. We show up on Sunday morning in the pulpit, and we train everybody. And we're going to train you how to do this. And we're going to go through about 7 or 8 lessons. We do that usually in around three days. And it's a culturally significant moment. So we're practicing congregational evangelism, not personal evangelism, right? So it's easy for Walker. It's real simple for someone to tell you no. It will be very difficult for them to tell the entire Church of Christ no. So we're not going to try to reach them as an individual. We're going to reach them as a congregation. It's a very different approach. And I get it. Guess where I get this from?
Where?
The Great Commission. Listen to the Great Commission. Go ye therefore. You guys are in college, so this will be a simple question. The word ye, is it plural or singular?
Plural.
Yeah, it's plural. Go ye. It's plural. So does go ye mean go me, or does go ye mean go all?
Go us.
Go us. It means everyone, right? We all go. We all got to go. We're not doing that. You know what we do? We got 4 or 5 people in our church that are good evangelists, and they go and convert. No, that's a terrible. The preacher does it. No, it's not that. The elders do it. No, every member, the college students, the high school students, the middle school students, all right, the widows, the widowers, everyone has got to go. We have all got to do this. If we don't all work together as a body, this is not going to work. So our school specializes in getting everyone involved, getting everybody participating, making sure that we all have a place. So if it's writing cards, then that's your place. If it's delivering a new mover basket to someone who's moved into the community, and by the way, we have the list. We know who moves in. We know how many move in. I give you their name and address, and most businesses know that. I don't know, guys, when y'all moved to Freed-Hardman, y'all in one of the dorms, for example, did Home Depot send you a little card that said, come to our store for 15% off? I mean, did Lowe's send you something? Come to ours at 10% off. They know when you move. And they're always sending out these little promotionals to new movers. Guess who else knows? We know. We know who moves. And we can approach these folks and say, hey, we're a local church in your community, and we've created a gift basket for you. And you're not going to get yelled at. No one yells at you for giving them a gift. And we have monetary things inside that basket that they will need as they move in. Simple things like that. Very powerful. We convert people using that just one tool. So go ye means go us, go all. We all need to go. Congregational evangelism. And you'll read about that on our website. And if you'll contact me, we'll be glad to teach you more about it. And maybe you're in a position where you can get your local congregation to contact us. And we'd be glad to come and train the church. We have over 225 churches enrolled in our school right now. And we've already trained, I think this is early May. So we've trained 15 congregations already this year. We'll be somewhere around 45 by the end of the year. And that's just routine for my families. We literally travel the country doing this. So we just got back from Texas. We trained 4. We went to Louisiana and Texas, and we just got back. And we're getting ready to go out again. We'll do it again. So we love it, but we think we're American missionaries, but we need help. And we need to engage your generation, because you guys can be excellent soul winners. And I'm sad to say most of you have not been trained how to do it, just like me. I was not trained. So we need to train you guys how to do it. And by actually people who do it, by the way. Not by somebody who hasn't had a Bible study and who knows how long. Anytime someone tries to teach you how to do evangelism, ask them how many Bible studies they have going on. Ask them the last time they baptized somebody. So if somebody came up to me and said, I want to teach you how to be wealthy, but they don't have a dollar to their name, maybe I won't listen to you, right? Maybe I would ask, like, why would I listen to you? It's like when Dave Ramsey does his financial piece and his financial, he does it on the radio. You know why people listen to him? Because he's successful. So let's listen to people who actually do it. That's why Ivan Stewart, Jewel Miller, Bobby Bates, Otis Gatewood, Mid McKnight. These are these guys were very good at what they did. So if we're going to teach people how to do evangelism, maybe we should be doing it too. So maybe we should be doing Bible studies and baptizing people. It's just some advice for your generation.
Well, we really appreciate you and all the work that you and your family do. I think the biggest thing that we can take away from this, other than, we need to evangelize, is that it's we. I really appreciated that point, Brother Rob, that you brought up time and time again, how it's a congregational approach. It's not just one person. It's not just the preacher. It's not just one of the members. It's everybody. And if the church, that congregation as a whole, is not committed to it, it is not going to work. I've seen that first congregations that I've been a part of. If a whole congregation is not focused on evangelism, there will not be an evangelism. And so the goal is not to go out and win souls by yourself. You can do that, absolutely. The goal is to make sure that the saved want to save other people.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. You're 100% right, Walker. 100%. So we have a 70% success rate in our school. The 30% who fail, it's because they're not doing it. They're not working together. They got the preacher doing it by himself. The elders aren't engaged. They're not following the process. But when a church works together, there's no more potent. There's not a more potent body in the world than the Church of Christ. All right. So God knew what he was doing when he formed the church. Listen, your God is a victorious God. He's a triumphant God. And unfortunately, in our churches, we know how to lose pretty good. There's a losing culture in our churches. And it's sickening because your God is triumphant and victorious, but yet we have divorced ourselves from that. And we're just satisfied with keeping the status quo. If we can just keep what we've got, we pat ourselves on the back. Guys, your God's an offensive God. He's offensive. It means we got to get out there and go on the offense if we're going to grow. And we do it together. Together we stand or together we fall. All right. There's not going to be any individual glory. This is all about him and his glory. It's not about me or you. This is about the Church of Christ glorifying Jesus by working together to reach the lost in their communities. And we are designed by God to do that, right? That's how God designed us. He didn't design us to, that's the preacher's job. No, that's not. In fact, that's you putting that burden on the preacher is turning him into a pastor without calling him a pastor. And it's unscriptural. It's wrong. We shouldn't be doing that.
The wording you use there, God is an offensive God, that was something that I would have been taken aback by a while ago. But I had a class this semester here at Freed-Hardeman, and we were looking at Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, which of course is where Jesus is talking to Peter, and he says, and I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. Of course, the rock there, not referring to Peter, it's referring to the statement that Peter made that Jesus is the Son of God. But my professor pointed out that it's talking about the gates of Hades. Gates are used to fortify, used to defend, right? Like you said, Brother Rob, we are on the attack. We are the army of the Lord, and we are taking the battle to Satan. At least we need to be.
Right.
And so,
I like that. The battle is the Lord, right? The battle is the Lord. We sing those songs. Jesus is the captain of the Lord's army. He's leading us into battle. We're not following. We're back in our pews. We're going to our graduation banquet in May. In June, we're going to our VBS, July, our Bible camp. In August, we're going to go to our Teachers Appreciation Day. In September, our gospel meeting. In October, trunk or treat. November, turkey giveaway. In December, the holiday party. And how many souls have been saved? Almost none. But we'll do it every year, and we're busy. We need to go into the fields that are wide into harvest, and we need to evangelize. But we won't do that until we teach people how to do it. So a lot of our members want to. I'm not beating up church members. I'm not beating up anybody. Listen, you're sitting there listening to this. You feel guilty. Guilt is good, but understand that I know you want to evangelize. I know that you want to reach the lost. That's not the problem. The issue is not, for many people, it's not a heart issue. The issue is they don't know how to do it. And so because they don't know how to do it, they try something, like they put, verses on Facebook or something, like they tweet out something, put it on their Instagram page. Terrible way to evangelize, like very unsuccessful, but they want to do something. So that's what they do. Are they give them the gospel meeting flyer? Are they meet them at the coffee shop to talk about, Jesus, but there's no results coming from it. So it's not that people don't want to, they just don't know how. And that's what I've learned, and why we started our school. We want to teach people how to do it. And we know if they'll do it, it will work.
Well, hey, we thank you so much for giving us just such encouragement and giving us a wake-up call, really, not only to just our generation, but hopefully anybody who listens to this and is blessed to hear this. I mean, it's truly, it should be a wake-up call and a cowbell in our ears saying that we need to get to work, and there's work to do. And so we're just truly thankful for all that. And just to clarify what you said earlier about enrolling as an individual, if they want to enroll, go to evangelism.house-to-house, heart-to-heart, or evangelism.house-to-house.com, and then email you, and then they enroll that away. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can enroll right from the website. There's a button right there on the homepage that says enroll now. Just click it. So you can click and enroll, and we'll send you the, our administrator is Austin Fowler. He'll immediately send you our curriculum packet, and we can get you started. If you have questions, please feel free to email me, rob@housetohouse.com. I can send you information personally, and I'll be glad to help you. If you got a Bible study, if you got somebody you want to study with, you don't know how, please ask. I'll take those phone calls all day long. I'll answer those texts all day, and help you, learn how to reach people. And there's so many different ways that Jesus reached the lost. Study Jesus, guys. I have a challenge for all of you. I know you've studied Jesus as the creator of the world. I know you've studied him as the Savior. I know you've studied him as head of the church. I know you've studied him as the reigning king. I know you've studied him as the returning Lord. Studying him as the evangelist. Find out what made him good. Find out how he reached the lost. Go to John 4 and read John 4 and look at how he reached that woman. It's amazing. He did 17 things in that chapter to reach her. It was incredible what he did, John 4. So the answers are in the Bible, but sometimes we're not looking at it through the lens of evangelism. We're looking at it through our traditional lens of, he's the head of the church. And we study.
We're not looking at Jesus.
Yeah. So look at his life, look at what he did. And there's never been a better evangelist than Christ. So if we can just do what he did, and learn it, find out and boil it down into things that we can digest. So we've identified 7 things he did that made him very successful. And that's what we teach in our school.
Well, brother, again, we appreciate you so much for your time, both with this meeting and the meetings that we've had leading up to this. We just got one last question for you, and that is, how can people support you as you and your family go out and do this? What can we do to support you in this work?
Well, I appreciate that question, and I'm going to answer it in this way. Support us by praying for us. Support us by contacting us and learning how to evangelize. We're not asking for. We don't need the financial support. We're not asking for it. We want you to support the gospel by learning how to be a soul winner. And I appreciate you asking that question, but our only desire is to help people learn how. And by doing this podcast, I hope it reaches a good audience. Hope it spreads. But just do it. just get out there and do it, and we'll help you.
Well,
thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And if there's nothing further, we'll go ahead and close in prayer. Father, we love you. We are so thankful for this day. We're thankful for Rob and all that he does for your kingdom, and the work that he is doing in order to help train us as individual Christians and as congregations as a whole to spread your word more effectively, to actually learn the method that works in order to teach the gospel to other people, and not just the routine, mundane stuff that we do day in and day out in an attempt to teach people the gospel, but is always unsuccessful. We're just so thankful for the curriculum that he's built and the stuff that he's centered around, which is all centered around you and your son being the master teacher. And we're just thankful for the content and the stuff that he shared with us today. We pray that it's pricked our hearts in a way that sparks a fire within us to go out and to do the same exact thing that he's doing, and having Bible studies and training people to be soul winners as well, and growing the church more effectively. We pray for all those who may be lost at this time. We pray that someone who has a love for Christ, like Rob or like any other fellow Christian, would have the courage to listen, but also be open to change and be open to coming to know you. Thank you for your son, Jesus, and all that he did for us. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.